Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a real American monster. James H. Hammond was born in 1807 in South Carolina to a lower-class family, but managed to get an education and pass the bar, becoming a lawyer. He would then secure his fortune by marrying a plain but wealthy girl, and he did this by basically harassing her over the objections of her own family until she said yes. So, real charmer. He then took over her family fortune and lived the dream of being a Southern slave owner, where he would write extensively in the defense of slavery, going so far as to declare that the mixed-race children that were in the South were the product of visiting Yankees who were moral degenerates and couldn't keep their hands to themselves, unlike enlightened patriarchal Southerners. I want you to remember this. He would serve a 2-year stint in the House of Representatives before being appointed governor of South Carolina. Now, I say appointed because back then South Carolina appointed its governors, state senators, U.S. senators, and judges from the lower house of South Carolina, which had property requirements before you could serve on there, and the state was gerrymandered by wealth instead of numbers. So, fun. He would not serve a full term as governor, though, because it was revealed several years into his term that he was molesting his nieces, the youngest of which was 13. He admitted this in his diary, but blames the girls, claiming it's not his fault they were overly affectionate with him. He was ousted from the governorship and polite society, but the girls were considered tainted and would never marry. Getting back to his wife, he would have children with her, but it turns out he also fathered children on a slave named Sally Johnson that he bought when she was 18. He also fathered children on Sally Johnson's daughter, who was all of 1 year old when he bought her. This behavior was so bad that his wife left him for 5 years, saying that he had turned their home into a brothel. And we know these are his children because he admits this in a letter to his oldest white son, who was also visiting these two ladies. And he admitted knowing that Sally Johnson's kids were his and begged his son to keep them in the family, but also to keep them enslaved because freeing them, he said, would be terrible. This is one of the reasons I'm calling him a monster here, guys. After saying all that, he would sell his enslaved son, and when the boy was punished by the buyer by being hung upside down by his feet and whipped, when he heard about this, he did absolutely nothing but write in his diary what a terrible day he was having for hearing this. He would later be appointed to the U.S. Senate, where he would serve part of a term and then resign when the Civil War started. And he would do such things to help the Confederate States, like protesting the government of South Carolina, doing such tyrannical things such as demanding the loan of his slaves to help build fortifications, or protest having to surrender grain as part of his tax to feed the Confederate Army, the army that was fighting and dying for his right to keep these slaves. He would die in 1864 and would die a liar, a hypocrite, and a slaver, among with other things that our Dreadlord algorithm doesn't like me saying out loud. But all of that is why he's qualified to be a real American monster of history. And you can find out more about him in the books Road to Disunion Volume 1 and 2. There's a link to both in the description.